Hello everyone, this is Fantastic Worlds, looking you back to Lovecraft Country and Secret World Interludes, where we take a deeper dive into the lore and locations of the Secret World Legends. And then get your nose out of there. Anyways, now, as you can probably tell, we're currently located within the Carpathian Fangs, and this section is of course a section of the Alps that is located in Romania that once fell under the territory of Vlad Dracula. It's also been occupied both by the Soviets and Lilith's forces, and of course the Romans, even before he was. So this section has got one of those, like I said, the continuing theme of being sort of run over by multiple empires during eras, and as a result, as you can see, the architecture is kind of schizophrenic. This of course is a Soviet style tunnel. Now this does not actually directly lead to the shadowy forest when you pass through here. It basically goes up and up miles, because we are several thousand feet above sea level at this point, and only the fact that we are an immortal being who probably doesn't need to breathe that much is the fact that we're not being affected. And as you can see, this entire section was dynamited out and created, so it means that during Dracula and the Romans' times, this road could not have possibly existed, which means the primary method they would use to get in and out probably would be tracks like this, and of course the frozen rivers down there. But before we get into that, let's deal with our first, shall we say, welcomer, Tryon. Now, Tryon, as you can see, does not have any dialogue, because as a elder werewolf, he really isn't into much conversation. But the thing about him is that werewolves, as we've discussed briefly before, are synthetic beings created by Lilith that are essentially created as a low-level foot soldier in her wars to dominate the universe, I guess, which apparently is what she's up to. We'll get more into her when we get to her in these episodes. But suffice it to say, the younger werewolves, according to the lore, are the ones who kind of lose themselves to bloodlust and allow themselves to be used by the vampires as... He's got a stretch in there. As foot soldiers. But the older ones, the ones that survive long enough to have their blood cool a bit, are the ones that can think, as Tryon does. His desire is to either A, free his people, or B, just wipe them out entirely. But past Tryon is, of course, a dead Orochi team. Now, while being dead is the natural state of any Orochi agent out in the wild, this case, it looks like these guys were being hunted down while they're trying to escape back to the tunnel. Because remember, in the lore of this game, the time point that we have entered, Lilith has betrayed the Orochi teams that were here researching both the Dimensional Breach and, of course, Emma, and try to take everything for herself. What she did manage to do is occupy the area with a bunch of freaky monsters, but Emma then immediately skips into Dimension Land, and her body is hidden below the facility, which, of course, we retrieve for her later, because that's what, heroes do in these sort of games. Stories, they tend to do accidentally provide the MacGuffin to the bad guy, or bad girl in this case. In any case, this section down here. Now, as you can see, this is one of the primary facilities in the area. This area, the river down here would be the primary method by which virtually all trade would happen. Now, of course, trade can only happen in the spring, and I'm guessing this is unnaturally cold winter, because let's face it, look around here. Does it look like people could live here? And yet, there are signs of habitation of life, which means that it's entirely possible that the rift being opened, or the Lilith's presence, or the supernatural beings in the area have altered the natural balance and, climate change. In any case, up here, of course, is the Sun Temple. Now, what makes this interesting, by the way, is this ancient Roman temple obviously must be created by the Solar Invictus, the cult that worshipped the sun that is connected to the Dreamers. Yet there's a connection to anima down here, which makes you wonder why exactly they created it. Now, as you can see, this section is not, in fact, part of the temple. The temple back wall is over here, which means the temple was placed here, like most temples when an area is conquered, over one of the holy sites of the area. In this case, it probably was an actual pagan temple to Gaia, and of course, a connection to anima would allow priests or priestesses, more likely, to be able to tap that energy for their own use. But when the Romans invaded, they took over the place and paved over it so no one else could use it. They themselves could not use it because, as they're dreamers, they're cut off. And obviously didn't contaminate it because, as you can see, the anima wells are still running. So, yeah, as you can see, the structures themselves overlook the area. And this section, the pagan temple, probably predates even Vlad's presence. Because remember, the Romans came before Vlad, so Vlad had no idea that was there, probably. In any case, we're gonna have to probably do some fighting as we go through here. I'll switch over to these skateboard if it takes too long. But the first things first is, of course, this gigantic citadel. The citadel itself is located, like I said, controlling this river area, so for the purposes of taxation, of course, and of course to control movement of soldiers. Now, the question always becomes, are the ruins originally from Vlad's time or the Romans' time? Now, this structure, the Gothic structures up there, indicate that this is, in fact, more of the rivers here. As you can see, though, this facilities are more in the Gothic style, which means that while the foundations, excuse me, Alright, that's over. Alright, so while the foundations themselves may have been produced in the Roman times, for example, these sections right here with the lower walls, the upper structure itself, okay, we're just switching over to, hang on, excuse me. Yeah, this is going to get old fast, so we'll switch over to stealth in a moment. Need my kills anyways. Alright, what do we got? Oops. Stealth board. Okay. Oh. Okay. That's not much. Okay, so yeah, as you can see, this particular facility down here, odds are this was a Roman fortification before Vlad came in. Now, of course, the crazy part about that is the catacombs down here, which, of course, would have been probably installed during the Roman times. Again, the Romans had this enormous sort of desire to put up gigantic structures everywhere just to put their name on everything. It was both a sort of colonization thing where, you know, hey, we're the ones in control. We are going to plant all of our structures above yours. Whoops. Hang on for a second. And thus you're going to see us as the ones in charge. Let's see if I can get through here. Probably not. But come on, recharge. But as you go further up from the Roman fortifications, you come to the Gothic structures that Vlad himself installed. And as you can see, the Dragon's Ascent... this could get old fast. The Dragon's Ascent, you had a large set of fortifications set over the... Alright, hang on a second. I'm so not fond. Yeah. Get me better with this unnecessary combat roll. Yeesh. Nazis and vampires. Nothing to love. And as you can see, the structure itself was created by Vlad in order to present his own claim on the territory over the Romans. Excuse me. And as you can see, it was later modified into a... dude, just... Okay, cool. He doesn't care. Come on. Yeah, this is during the one of our... I love how this guy is just chilling here. Can I knock you over the side? That would be cool. Unfortunately not. Do like how if I run over him, he kind of just twitches. Traitor of Bazarab? I'm sure there's like a message there, or I mean a story behind why he's the traitor of Bazarab, but at the moment, it's not lending itself to the story. But as you can see, this area was Dracula's primary fortification in this zone, which means that if you look over it, not only does it have a stunning view of the Alps, it allows him to overlook all tactical locations. But as the modern lighting can say, later on it was purchased by, well, we remember her. Oof, can't remember off the top of my head, but we'll probably get to her in this particular episode, by a rich family, which essentially converted it into their chateau. And as you can see, there's the river the area is being controlled down there. Okay, but of course, once the first tourist gets in, more show up. Now, the Morning Light, because they controlled the last heir to the family here, now controls all of the structures in the distance. And as you can see, this is hang on. Dude. could have just walked on by, but nope. You decide you need to... Ugh. Apparently I, killed enough of them. Anyways, so yeah, as you can see, this guy is dressed in the Morning Light colors. So what happens is that we know from the some of the missions that the Morning Light themselves set up an area to help with the vampires. Now, this does make some sense and some indication because... Oops, sorry about that. Because we have the necessity to do things in the daylight for some of their missions. It would have made it easier. Yeah, they've got those rag suits, but they probably still don't feel that terribly comfortable. Also, like the fact they have used to have satellite TV, and that's got to be a gas fire because it's been going on for a while. And yeah, it's actually still kind of comfy here. But as you can see, these are probably standard tourist cabins that got later converted into essentially drug use. I'm sorry, it's time to do some eviction here. I represent the owners and we want you to leave. Your lease is over. As you can see, they're probably straight up drugs as well as other medicinals for whatever metaphysical requirements they're needed. And they have internet. Yeah. You know, I honestly wouldn't mind this if it was kind of a skiing trip sort of thing. I've been to certain places when I did my own skiing way back when. Used to do a lot of country skiing. Loved it. You could just go for like 20 miles, not see a soul, into the deep winter. But as you can see, the area still retains its tactical usage, and it's still being used by the people currently occupying it, which are Lilith's army. Now, this, of course, is the... Hang on. There we go. This, of course, is the original village. Now, the thing about this is that obviously it's still being occupied. The fact that they... Oh, gods. Hang on. Guys, we're just doing the tour here. Ugh. Have to start using the stealth forward again. Whisper. Way too loud for me to whisper, really. Snowdrifter, kind of like that. Probably goes around and lures people into storms and kills them. Because wraiths are just, you know, a rumor. Okay. But as you can see, since they're still harvesting hay here, obviously this area, and you still have literally green grass coming through the snow. Whatever changes happened to the climate happened relatively soon. I mean, relatively soon in the past. Relatively recently in the past. That's probably the best way of putting it. And as you can see, ironically, some of this stuff doesn't even have snow on it, which is kind of weird, mind you. I'm going to put that more towards the kind of glitching error. The fact that some of the devs didn't reuse the assets properly. But, yeah. Since we know... Oh, for crying out loud, dude. Alright, cool. But if this is the case, then we know that there have to have been living people here. These could be the ghosts of it, but they strike me more as the ghosts of probably the ancestors. Ah, that's more likely over there. But you have John Deere's class equipment right here with the, of course, Middle Ages architecture. But this isn't actually unusual. Now, a lot of the structures like this, by the way, that still exist in Europe are in areas that did not see heavy fighting during World War I. Like, for example, the heavy bombing done by the Allies in the German and French areas, or Germans into the French area when the French were still holding it, would destroyed most of these wooden structures because, of course, the incendiary bombs would just kind of take them completely apart, burn them to the ground. Now, Romania, especially in this area, did not serve any tactical purpose within the war, and probably was swiftly taken over by the Blitzkrieg tactics of the Germans by conventional forces. So a lot of these still remained intact, and yeah, in places that didn't take severe damage in World War I and World War II, you still will find some medieval structures in play. For England, for example, of course, if you know sections that weren't around London or strategic targets still have those archaic roads and buildings made of fieldstone and moss, practically. But in this area here, whatever living people were wiped out by Lilith's forces. Now the question is, where was Oriochi during all that? The Oriochi, you remove these people? I mean, which is a possibility. They could have just bought them out and told them to get out. But another possibility is that Oriochi essentially used them to supply their food. I mean, let's face it. Oriochi, if they're really smart, they're working for Oriochi, they're not going to eat the rations because God knows where they've been. And as you can see, a lot of the modern playground equipment means this place had access to schools and other forms of education. Now, in this case, it might actually be, thank goodness, it might actually be the church rather than the state that provided some of these, because you still have that in some places where the Catholic Church is the most organized institution as opposed to the state. I mean, let's face it, the place looks like it probably still is relatively a religious structure, given the fact that the largest building over here across the river, again, the river's being the main access point in the past, is the graveyard and the church. Oh my god, I have to fight my way for this, aren't I? Alright, we can do this. Carpathian Maiden. Slow dance. And if you remember that particular mission where we were diving deep into Emma's head, Emma has a connection to this place, which means that she must have attended services while she was experimented on by the Smiths, which means that odds are Oriochi wasn't... I do like this realistic Middle Ages art here, which means that Oriochi was integrated with the community. And kind of give me a second here if I can find the... come on. Alright. Let's see if I can find it. I know it's kind of silly, but sometimes I like to do... Where is... Oh yeah. The thing is, you can... Worship. There we... Not worship. Preach. The Lord keep you and face down upon you and be gracious. Never mind. Anyways... But as you can see, it's also being relatively well maintained, even due to the fact it's been under, shall we say, enemy occupation for a while. Let's get the camera back. Oh well. Any case, as you can see, the Gothic structures are surviving from Vlad's time, but have been maintained by the modern people. Again, showing that sort of layered nuance of the multiple layers of history living simultaneously within this area. Oh, up here. Can we get up here? No. Oh, well. And as you can see, like most other structures, while it was repurposed for civilian use, it is literally part of an older foundation that had more militaristic purposes. Okay, cool. Oh, gods. I really got lost, didn't I? At some point I have to, remember how many enemies are... Oh, I can't even... Okay, fine. Fine. Oosh. At least I'm getting my kills. Sorry about that. Okay, wipe you all out. Guys, can't we all just get along? No? Fine. Take a nap. Well, there go my kill counts for the undead. Spirits, probably. Guys, just let me through. Alright, so yeah, the primary... Let's crowd all over here, guys. I want a small location. Alright. There we go. Anyways. Sorry about all that. Okay, Ravensfield. Now, Ravensfield is probably the name of this particular village. This section over here would be the one that's actually more accessible to the main roads and thus contains all of the habitations. Now, we know that... Give me a second here. Boom, that was it. Right, the vendor. The only survivors of the Oriochi Civil War at the moment are, of course, these guys. The Council of Oriachi. Council of Venice has these 5 survivors, one of which isn't terribly surviving at the moment, with their last supplies holed up in here. Now, they know that the council's members have bullets, but they probably don't have wards, which means that they are literally hiding from these ghosts. I mean, like, feet away, meaning that these guys are not going to last too long on the time point. They are definitely going to be, they're definitely going to be eventually overrun. Yeah, as you can see, there's the fortifications I was speaking of right there. Again, these are the modern ones that are built on top of the medieval ones, which are built on top of the Roman ones. So this place has been seeing, this place has been drenched in blood for a long period of time. Oh, the canal system too, plus a mill. Again, obviously the mill operates a lot of the time, because if it was frozen like this all winter, then it would be destroyed. Essentially, ice always expands, and anything inside of it's going to be dragged through, so this thing would be bent out of shape. So this cold is unnatural. It's also kind of the reason why there's no survivors in this area, except, of course, fellow immortals, supernatural beings, and that magician slash half-fae that works for Oriochi. We'll get to him probably in the next interlude, because I'm going to concentrate more on the past here. In fact, I'm probably going to zip down here. Oosh. Alright. This is going in the right direction. Okay, so here we are. If you can see where the map is, over by Callisto's Cave, the Repentance Cabin, as it were. So the thing is about this area, as I mentioned, that, of course, the unnatural cold, one of the ways this is an example is the fact that we still have spring around the anima wells. Now, you'll notice that none of these... notice that despite all these short-lived phenomenon, there are some small pine trees, which basically means this area is, in fact, the only place not affected by the unnatural cold, because obviously these things wouldn't have popped up instantly, and they're kind of out of place, so people will kind of notice and, pick those flowers or something. So this is actually what this area looked like before whatever the hell Lilith did. Now, it's interesting is that maybe Lilith hit him with a massive weather spell just before the Orochi attack, just to throw everybody off, because bad weather is one hell of a force multiplier, especially if you're dealing with entities like, vampires and werewolves who aren't going to be affected by the cold. But let's pop in and see the old man, shall we? Again, I kind of picture this guy as a reject from a Anne Rice book. He's got that sort of brooding... debonair, oh pity poor me kind of mentality. Of course, we're just going to have to... Oh, that was interesting.
I bid you welcome.
Oh, thank you. Well, the thing is, invitations in vampire lore are, of course, very important, which means that since we are a supernatural being ourselves, the Fae, he is essentially allowing us into his domain under the sacred hospitality rules that I have mentioned before. He doesn't have apparently much to talk about, but, this is, after all, kind of his shtick. He is definitely self-absorbed individual. Tell me about yourself.
I did not expect an audience, else I would have dressed for the occasion.
You have other clothes?
I presume from your eye-catching fashions that there is an occasion, Incantato. I am the shadow of Alessandro Farouzi.
All right, tell me about yourself, Alessandro.
A poet. He lived to entertain. Himself first, and then his audience.
Oh, it's being realistic.
His appetite for life's delicacies could not be contained by the Venice of his birth.
Really?
All the world was a feast, inviting. Knowing this, I understand what my killer saw in me, and I forgive her.
So essentially he was a decadent playboy that wandered away from Venice and somehow ended up in the court of Dracula, Vlad Tepes, at a rather kind of ironic time in which the vampire Lilith turned Mara into a vampire queen, and then she turned him because she saw in him the same shallow appetite that she herself must have been exploited by Lilith.
To go beyond death, to find the most fabulous excesses, it was wonderful, dizzying. Years passed as a carousel of delights. Delights to us, horrors to mortals.
Ooh, so he is not one of those who maintained his morality after being turned. Just after centuries of gorging themselves on the innocent that he became jaded by it all.
I saw what I had become. Alessandro Farouzi consumed life to celebrate it. I merely preyed upon it.
Mm-hmm.
That is why I sealed myself away from the world. I could not face my shame, nor could I bear myself to the sun, any more than you would willingly step into a furnace.
Well, I kind of would survive that. You wouldn't survive the sun, mind you. Yeah, essentially, can I get a better angle here? Essentially, yeah, Alessandro put himself into monastic, which is ironic considering some of the structures around here, an existence away from everybody else, which means that he's constantly hungry, but as an elder, it's not what drives him. It can't force him to do anything. He's managed to his control. Now, he's obviously in... Think about it. Now, the other vampire we met, the general back in the village church, said that he could smell the blood on us and was tempted to attack us because he's much younger than Alessandro. Alessandro here essentially has killed the hunger by denying it for so long. It literally does not exist for him. But since hunger is the thing that defines a vampire's existence and drives their passion, it's why he's so listless. He literally has nothing to do with his time. Now, I, of course, said before, he could have just gawk into a modern city, get gallons of blood from the butchers, start writing up some poetry, and maybe, hell, assuming that in this universe, vampires images can be captured digitally, he could start a YouTube channel. I'm sure he'd get like dozens of fangirls and a few fanboys that are really into the pouty, pale look.
This crack in the earth has been my atelier for 10,000 nights.
Translating roughly.
I chose my own exile and burial. A melodramatic gesture, true.
Mm-hmm.
But melodrama was my trade.
Oh, at least he's being honest about himself.
No. Occupying a grand castle or opulent manor is a show of entitlement. For my sanguine curse, these are the luxuries I deserve. Solitude. Darkness. The drip of water to count off lifetimes. Candle wax and guano.
Which could theoretically get together for a massive explosion, but he's managed to avoid that now. It's a little too wet.
I convinced myself the valley outside had remained frozen.
Wait, what?
Not just in snow, in time itself. That there was no world beyond such wonders, muses and inspiration. Alessandro Farouzi never lived to see that world.
So, Okay, so apparently the place must freeze over every now and then. It's entirely possible that Lilith's presence, when she came to corrupt Mara and Mara corrupted him, caused the same effect, which could be true. I mean, she is kind of messing with the timeline of, not timeline, I mean the energies of the world by trying to mess with the world engines themselves, the Gaia engines.
You know better than I what unknown journeys brought men and monsters here. Yes, I've heard the thunder of their new machines.
Ryochi?
And in reply, the rocks seem to echo and quake, as if they hold a less willing prisoner than I.
The Dreamers. He's referring to sensing them trying to crack open the stone around the breach that we were in at the end of this particular, end of the Transylvanian storyline, where we dove into a 2001 Odyssey, basically, with us running around with alien technology on in a far dimension. Vlad.
If an artist's spirit is a tendency to embellish, then I still possess a fraction of a spirit. But believe me, when Vlad Dracula lifted a blade, no man could be his match. I say man, none could match him. With iron, fire, and faith, he purged Wallachia of monster, demon, and spirit. He ended the corruption of the boyars. He pushed back the Mussulman and traitors alike. Nothing that hated him could wound him. Still, he was undone all the same. Love. It was love that caused it all to end.
Yes.
The rose bushes that marked their arbor were uprooted. Bare beds suggesting fresh graves.
Very dramatic.
Ask me to speak of his kindness, speak of his charity, speak of his love. And I can only tell you of his defeat, despair, betrayal. Betrayed by each other, and betrayed by me. stood by, paralyzed with vampiric desire and all too mortal fear.
Basically, he did not help Vlad when at critical time against Mara, because remember, he was corrupted at the time. There we go. And so he's been staring at this hole for 10,000 nights divided by 3-ish. A long time. Centuries. Okay. Let's see, take a quick dive to the south. Now, if you recall, my least favorite enemies, the Flappy Flappies as I call them, had a monastery of the lady. Now, originally down here, this particular monastery...
Special assignment
oh,
received.
good grief.
Initializing.
This section down here would have been another one of those facilities. Dude, chill. Monastery of the First Mother. By the way, that is one of Lilith's subquests, which basically means that she's corrupted everybody. So this must have been when Vlad had his journey outwards, because you can see the monastery plus the graveyards have been here a long time, which means probably between the Roman period and the Vlad's period. And Oriachi just stayed the hell away. But the monks here, the deathless ones, are the remnants of those that were corrupted by Lilith, who turned on all of their fellows and changed from the worship of Mary to that of Lilith, basically declaring themselves to the dreamers. Now, the connection between Mary in the religious sense and, of course, let's see, which probably should jump from here. Mary between the religious sense and, just so they don't sneak up on me, and Gaia is supposed to be an interesting one in the game. It's never really dealt with, but the concept being is that, of course, that Gaia would be the mother of all in this world, which would be the first mother, but Lilith is attempting to claim that. Essentially, in the game itself, she's attempting to claim it by stealing Anima's power. So she's really ambitious, but she's probably also not capable of handling that level of power, which is why we keep ending ages with her, you know, being really stupid. The thing was, Samuel eventually got over his take over and control the world as a god to take over and control the world as a really powerful mortal. And he doesn't seem terribly happy about it, but, you know, he doesn't seem like he's, but that's more because Lilith left him. I mean, frankly, if Lilith was chilling with him, he'd probably be okay. I mean, better than Alessandro's doing with immortality. Anyway, so I'm going to pop over to the next section. Hang on. Okay. So the bath section. Now this is during the original Roman occupation, which means these roads are on right here. The ones that you can see on this section of the map probably extend from the Roman era and were used by Vlad later. Of course, they've been regraded but not paved because this isn't an area that has heavy traffic. But I'm sure I'm going the right way. Oh yeah, there we go. Oops, gotta go this way. Sorry. Anyways, but as you can see, this section right here is where the baths are. Now, the thing about the baths is that the Romans used baths as a public facility in order to keep up, well, cleanliness. Because one thing that plagues and other forms of and parasites and other forms of really bad nastiness is of course hygiene. And the fact that the goddesses even had the Romans even had a goddess of hygiene, but as you can see, it eventually Sol Invictus took this place over and made it into a place of worship. But as you can see, the Romans didn't like to do anything with half measures. They created an entire structure that's more or less probably a temple to Hygiena here. Oh, excuse me, I forgot that you guys don't like visitors. You know, this place is open to the public, and you guys just kind of, what can I say? You guys are just killjoys. Decide that you can't let anybody else in. But as you can see itself, it was created into another natural cave system, which probably means that this section right here is in fact another pagan temple. That's why that's why it's of some importance. Oh, I got to deal with this, aren't I? Hi. Okay, we got that over with. Oop, don't want the goop on us. Okay. So which means that once again, they have taken over another structure. Now, the question is, was this one also Gaian? Because I think that makes the most sense. Hang on. Dream claimed legionary. Good. Dreamers always Dreams of themselves do not do anything. You require will. And you'll give in a much better quote about that. Dreams make no promises. Are we capable of doing that? 6 more seconds. Anyways, the idea being is that this was probably another guy in Shrine, but this one got thoroughly corrupted. Because if you go further, the more further you go down in, if you remember Lilith also was chilling in this place, you eventually come to the actual springs themselves that feed the area, which is a massive structure, that has sort of this dark fluid running through it right there. Which of course also Lilith turned into a puzzle, one of the things. So, hang on a second. Oops. As you can see, the primary bath is in fact here. I'm going to have to kill my way through this, aren't I? Guys, just ignore me. I'm harmless. As you can see, yeah, that's what all the liquid's about. As you can see, it's filth contaminated, which means the area had to have been high in anima at the time. And you can see there's another set of caves, which we'll deal with over there, which probably is the original pagan shrine, or at least what's left of it, among the natural springs. And like I said, the Romans overtook it. The Romans got overtaken by the Dreamers. The Dreamers, because remember the Sol Invictus ones that came in through here were running from the Roman Empire as traitors to their gods, and of course traitors to Gaia. And look, this is what they get for their reward. They get to sit here for all eternity and drool. Isn't that great? Don't the Dreamers have a great package when it comes to their employee benefits? Anyways, hang on. Okay, so here we are over the entrance of the original Sacred Springs, Zana Springs. Now, it's easy to overlook, by the way, unless you're doing a particular mission, but you can always find it compared to next this Oriochi vehicle, which is currently stuck in the snow, and considering a lack of snow in the inn, I'm still saying that this freeze was recent. It's totally a development or design, and not just an oversight that there's snow not in a lot of these structures. But as you can see, the structure itself is a natural cave with these springs coming from deeper locations, and they've all been corrupted by filth. But one of the things about being corrupted by filth, of course, is that you had to originally had anima in the location to be corrupted, which means odds are way back when this was a sacred site in which people bathed in waters that were charged with the power of raw anima from a source down below and were given miraculously healing. I'm gonna have to zip in. Now these are Zemai, which are living dreams of legends that the children of the region had about these predators that would come and attack them. Now, these didn't exist originally, but the Dreamers, of course, can make dreams reality, and they have done so, and they're actually not that nice to tangle with. I cleared a few out in the way here to make things a bit easier, but odds are we're going to be doing structures. But as you can see, we've gone so deep that we are currently... Give me a moment. Alright, move. And boom, boom. Lightning bolt, lightning bolt. Ah, you puked on me. Unkind of you. Sir, unkind of you. Okay, that's done. Okay, so as you can see down here, the Roman temple did originally extend down this far. So again, like they claimed it for themselves and then corrupted it in the name of the Dreamers. Just give me a second here. Zip through. And as you can see, they kept going deeper and deeper until they start coming towards the prime source. Now, this section is guarded by a Stalker in the Darkness, which is one of the filth guardians that manifest around heavy concentrations of filth. And wouldn't you know it, over here, next to the Oriachi guy who was just staring at a large corruption of reality influencing virus pouring in, the original anima well at the core was corrupted by the Sol Invictus to produce nothing but the dark sludge. All of those springs up there became essentially reservoirs for the filth itself to contaminate this world. So Oriachi was studying this, and as we know, Oriachi wants to tap filth as a potential power source to literally convert it back into anima. According to Amanda, there's supposed to be lore that says they're having some success with this, but you know, odds are with Oriachi is that it's not anywhere near as good as they think it is, and eventually if they try to turn it into some sort of gasoline, it will eat people when they refill their tanks. But This shows that, of course, this entire mountain must have been once a gigantic temple complex before even the Romans showed up, making it kind of, they leave the fifth and lowest layer we have, probably extending down into the Neolithic. And oh my god, my archaeology geek is definitely showing. Yeah, I'm really big into ancient history. You know, Mesopotamia, ancient Egypt, Neolithic religions. It's always interesting to see where we come from, because I think in a lot of ways we've lost a lot of that lore. That idea of the sacred nature being was one, and considering the state of our world today, I think it was a bad thing that we lost that. Anyways, popping back out here into the bright sunlight and melting snow. Anybody else want to play? Yeah, apparently some people do. But fortunately, we can just make them lose us. So yeah, that is the archaic, the ancient parts of the town that we've kind of gone over. But next time, what we'll do is we're going to be going over the Oriochi facilities and the Red Hand facilities. In other words, the modern ones. The ones that came here seeking the mystical energies that haven't been tapped since the Romans in an attempt to, for their own domination of the world. After all, the Russians wanted to do it back in the Cold War, and the Oriochi wants to do it today. But every time, they get destroyed by the chthonic forces, and I love that word, that are beneath our feet. Because one of the things the ancients knew that we should relearn is that these things that have come before us are greater than us, and if we don't treat them with reverence, they will in fact destroy us. So, yeah, keep that in mind if you've ever tempted to poke into things that are ancient and mysterious. Be respectful. Anyways, this is Fantastic World saying farewell from Lovecraft Country. Now, given that we did actually tip past the, I believe, 425 mark, there will be a special episode after this. I think I'll probably do the dungeon episode in this area, which will be tied into the Red Hand and Mara for lore purposes. And we're at 474 when it comes to subscribers. Now, the next one at 475 will in fact unlock the next special episode after that. Now, of course, we are coming towards the end of the regular run, so when we start unlocking special episodes past 500, the rules are going to change a little bit, but we still will having new material. And I have at least 2. I want to try to get a special episode in each time. So if we do past that point, we'll have 3 episodes, then another interlude, then another special episode, then probably the last 3 episodes, the epilogue, and the last special episode, assuming that we get to 525 by that point, which would probably be 2 months from now. We're doing pretty good towards that, and you guys have been great about that. It's awesome, and it's kind of helping the channel grow a bit, so I can provide more services. If we ever get to 1,000, be able to do that poll for which series to do a lot easier, because a lot of services unlock at that point. But speaking of that, when we actually get to the end of the series, I'll be doing, of course, Lust from Beyond, which was an unlock that occurred at 200 subscribers. Yeah, 274 subscribers, but they were 6 months late dropping the series. I've gone into it before, I won't go into too much this time, but when this series ends, probably sometime in early June, we'll do Lust from Beyond. When that series is done, we will do a vote for our subscribers to determine which one of the next series. Now, as you may or may not know, and if I really remember, I'll put a card here, that we are currently doing I'm currently doing a Let's Try series of the potential episodes. So you can see about an hour or so of gameplay, whether or not that is one of the series. There'll be 5 series. The first one, which I've already dropped, is going to be Song of Horror, and due to one of my awesome supporters, I have received a copy of Arkham Horror Mother's Embrace, which is based off of the Arkham Horror Call of Cthulhu RPG board game. Long story about that, but I'll get into it when we do that one. That will be the next one, probably the first or second week of April. And of course, if you are a supporter, like of course you're the one who gave me the lovely copy, that will be an additional 1 hour of gameplay after that point. After all, supporters do get additional votes. It's 2 votes for $1. 3 votes for $2 supporters. So they should probably, see more of the episode to get better of an idea. After all, with power comes responsibility. In any case, this is Fantastic World saying farewell from Lovecraft Country, and I will see you next time.
You will see the dawning of a new age. To be a monarch or a beggar. To lose everything or to become a god. To stand with us or against us. The choice is yours.